Perseus of Macedon was born into a name that once terrified the world. He was not just another prince. He was the last king of a bloodline that traced itself back to Alexander the Great. From the moment he opened his eyes inside the royal palaces of Pella, Perseus was surrounded by reminders of conquest, maps of defeated lands, weapons carried by legendary generals, and stories whispered by tutors about an empire that once stretched from Greece to India. To be born Macedonian royalty was to inherit ambition, pride, and the crushing weight of history. Perseus was taught that Macedon did not bow, that kings ruled by strength, and that Rome, though rising, was still an upstart power that could be resisted. As Perseus grew, so did his belief that destiny had chosen him to restore Macedonian greatness. He watched the Roman Republic expand across the Mediterranean, absorbing kingdoms one by one, but he refused to believe that Macedon would be next. His father, King Philip V, had already clashed with Rome and tasted defeat, but Perseus interpreted those failures as mistakes rather than warnings. Where his father had negotiated, Perseus believed he would dominate. Where others saw Rome's discipline and organization, Perseus saw arrogance waiting to be punished. When he ascended the throne in 179 BC, he did so with the confidence of a man who believed history owed him victory. Perseus did not rush into war immediately. He was patient, calculating, and cautious, at least at first. He strengthened Macedon's treasury, rebuilt alliances, and worked quietly to undermine Roman influence in Greece. Many Greek cities, weary of Roman interference, looked to Perseus as a potential savior. He spoke the language of freedom, promising liberation from Roman control, and for a moment, it seemed as though Macedon might once again lead the Greek world. Perseus believed that if he could unite enough allies, Rome would be forced to retreat or negotiate. In his mind, this was not rebellion, it was destiny correcting itself. But Rome was watching. The Romans did not panic, and they did not rush. They had learned long ago that patience won wars as surely as swords. While Perseus gathered support, Rome gathered intelligence. Roman envoys traveled through Greece, exposing Perseus' promises as lies and threatening cities that considered siding with him. One by one, potential allies hesitated or withdrew. Still, Perseus pushed forward, convinced that when war finally came, Macedon's famous phalanx, rows of soldiers armed with long spears, would crush the Roman legions just as it had crushed enemies centuries before. War became inevitable. In 171 BC, the Third Macedonian War began. Perseus led his armies with confidence, and in the early stages, fortune seemed to favor him. He won small victories, pushed Roman forces back, and proved that Macedon was not yet finished. These successes fed his pride. Perseus began to believe that the gods themselves favored his cause. Yet even in victory, cracks appeared. Perseus hesitated when he should have pressed his advantage. He feared risking everything in one decisive blow. While he waited, Rome adapted. The Romans sent experienced commanders and reorganized their forces. They studied the Macedonian phalanx, learning its strengths and, more importantly, its weaknesses. The phalanx was powerful on flat, open ground, but it was rigid and vulnerable when formations broke. Rome understood this, and they waited for the right moment to exploit it. Perseus, blinded by confidence and burdened by indecision, failed to see the trap forming around him. That moment came in 168 BC, at the Battle of Pydna. On paper, Perseus held the advantage. His army was strong, well-equipped, and confident. At first, the Macedonian phalanx pushed the Roman legions back, its long spears creating an almost impenetrable wall of death. For a brief moment, Perseus believed he was witnessing the rebirth of Macedonian glory. But the battlefield was uneven, and as the phalanx advanced, its perfect formation began to fracture. Gaps opened. Roman soldiers rushed into those gaps with ruthless efficiency, attacking at close range where the long spears were useless. Chaos followed. The disciplined Macedonian formation collapsed into confusion. Roman swords rose and fell, cutting down soldiers who could no longer defend themselves. Perseus watched as his army, his legacy, was destroyed before his eyes. Instead of rallying his men or dying with them, Perseus chose to flee. In that single decision, his fate was sealed. The king who dreamed of restoring Alexander's empire abandoned his army and ran. Perseus became a fugitive. He fled the battlefield, shedding his royal image with every desperate step. No longer a king commanding armies, he was a hunted man seeking shelter wherever he could find it. He hid in sacred temples, clinging to the hope that, The gods would protect him, but even the gods seemed silent. Macedon fell swiftly after Pydna. Cities surrendered. Resistance collapsed. Rome did not merely defeat Macedon, it dismantled it. Eventually, Perseus was captured. There was no dramatic last stand, no heroic death. Roman soldiers found him weak, exhausted, and broken. They placed chains on the hands that once held royal authority. Yet Rome did not execute him. Death would have been mercy. Instead, Rome chose humiliation. Perseus was sent to Italy, not as a king, but as a living symbol of Roman dominance. In Rome, Perseus was prepared for a triumph, the grand celebration of victory reserved for Rome's greatest generals. During this spectacle, defeated enemies were paraded through the streets as trophies. Perseus, once ruler of Macedon, was forced to walk in chains before cheering crowds. Gold chains, yes, but chains nonetheless. Romans watched with fascination as the last king of Macedon passed before them. Stripped of dignity, reduced to an object of entertainment. The message was unmistakable. This is what happens to those who challenge Rome. After the triumph, Perseus disappeared from public view. Rome had no further use for him as a spectacle. He was spared execution, but spared glory as well. He was sent into quiet captivity, living the remainder of his life far from power and influence. Some sources suggest he lived in relative poverty, dependent on Roman charity. Whether true poverty or simply a life stripped of honor, the result was the same. Perseus, who once dreamed of ruling an empire, lived out his days as a forgotten man. His fall was not just personal, it was symbolic. With Perseus' defeat, Macedon ceased to exist as an independent kingdom. Rome divided the land, dismantled its institutions, and ensured that it could never again rise as a unified power. The bloodline of Alexander the Great ended not in glory, but in silence. Perseus did not die on a battlefield like his ancestor. He faded away in obscurity, a cautionary tale written by Roman hands. The story of Perseus of Macedon is not merely about military defeat. It is a story about pride, hesitation, and the brutal efficiency of Roman power. Rome did not just conquer lands, it broke spirits. It understood that true domination was not achieved by killing kings, but by showing the world what happened when kings lost everything they believed made them great. Perseus lived long enough to see his legacy erased, his name remembered not for victory, but for collapse. In the end, Perseus' greatest enemy was not Rome alone, but the shadow of history he could never escape. He wanted to be Alexander, but lived in a world that belonged to Rome. And Rome made sure that the last king of Macedon would serve as a warning to all who came after him. Empires rise, empires fall, but Rome ensured that Perseus' fall would be remembered not as a noble end, but as a lesson carved into history itself. Perseus believed being born a king made him untouchable. Rome proved him wrong. If you want more true stories where empires rise and kings fall, subscribe to the channel and watch the next Roman story on your screen now.